Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Mark. I'm a principal consultant at a firm called Hydrock, but I'm also on the IAQM Early Career Network Committee, alongside Honor, who many of you in the room know, Joe from the IS, and Jason in the corner as well. We're all on the Early Career Network Committee at the IAQM. I've been invited to chair this event for you today, so I've drawn the short straw. But then again, it's all about public speaking, so we'll have to do it at some point. But before we get stuck in, Honor, maybe you want to do the housekeeping, fire protocol.
Thank you. So, welcome everyone to this event. Welcome our speakers, Sean and Mark, and welcome all of you. Mark is chairing, so I will pass back to him.
Sure. I'll just give a bit of context then. So, I think most of us in the room, not all of us in the room, work in. Can you just put this cursor back on that screen? I work in the field of air quality. Thanks. So while we're here to talk about public speaking, it's something many people, if not all people, would choose to avoid if they can. Yet effective communication across a range of formats is a critical skill that can advance a career. Skills in this area indicate creativity, critical thinking, and leadership abilities, which are all highly valuable. And speaking at events and conferences is also a good way of building reputation and credibility. So with that in mind, we've organised a two-part workshop, both called Master the Art of Public Speaking, aimed specifically at early career professionals to unlock as much potential as you can in your public speaking abilities. So this is part one. It's all about learning theory. And I appreciate, I'm not checking. Appreciate the theory of public speaking might sound a little bit dry on paper, but we've got a great afternoon lined up with some interesting speakers. And through the guidance of our speakers, we'll be exploring the general rules of public speaking and presenting data to a range of audiences, specifically including non-expert audiences, which can be crucial in a specialist area like air quality. We'll introduce part two at the end. The aim of part two is to have a more practical element. So, to my knowledge, no one in the room will be picked on to speak today apart from the organised speakers. I won't be choosing anyone to anyway. So here's how the afternoon will go. We have three amazing speakers, as I've said, lined up to talk us through the science of public speaking, the art of storytelling, and presenting air quality information specifically. And then Joe will conclude from the IS to summarise an opportunity that we have for early career members to potentially present at Routes to Clean Air. So I'll introduce our first speaker, Honor, who many of you know, who heads up the Early Career Committee at the IAQM and is a principal consultant here at Ricardo. Honor is an accomplished environmental strategy professional with over 13 years of experience in fields of air quality assessment and reporting, delivery of decarbonation plans and sustainability and ESG frameworks. Honor will be starting things off with a presentation on the science of public speaking. So over to you, Honor.
Thank you, Mark. Can I get the next slide? Oh, am I there? I can do it. So our jobs are changing. The job which you're doing today, this job probably will be slightly different in 5 years' time, and it will be definitely different in 10 years' time. And as you know, certain skills will be retired, certain jobs will be retired, but there is skills like communication and public speaking, which will be really in demand going forward. And it's really important for start really practicing the public speaking and communication skills quite early in your career, because you shouldn't really leave it to the last moment when you actually have been asked to do those presentations. Public speaking has to be practiced, and to gain confidence, there's no better way just to basically stand in front of the people and speak to people. So I'm sure you all heard about general rules of public speaking, so that you should be quite confident and have a good posture when you speak to people, that you should project your voice in the end of the room so everyone could hear you. But today, I would like to bring you a little bit science into the public speaking and give you why those rules actually matter. And I hope all of that gives you a good explanation and help you remember what to do when you next time public speak. Let's start from the question. the general question, what is public speaking? So in that kind of very simple terms, public speaking is really presenting in person to a live audience. So we really public speak every single day. If you speak to your friends, you public speak. If you speak to your family, you public speak. If you speak to your colleagues, you speak in public. So what is the problem with this public speaking? Well, the problem is when we start to speak into the group that we don't know, maybe to strangers, to bigger group, there's always a bit of a question, what's the difference between speaking to 2 people and speaking to 100 people? The 100 people really make us feel a little bit anxious, and we all feel a little bit unsure about presenting to strangers. I'm sure you have heard this notion that public speaking is actually bigger fear than death. And that was publicized, this motion, by one of the American comedians who said that at funeral, most of the people would be rather in the coffin than actually give at the end the last speech to the person. So what is about public speaking that really create this fear in us? Do you have, like, what's your fear of public speaking? Give me some examples. What you don't like about public speaking? Sean?
The fear of freezing.
The fear of freezing. So you forget something, yes? What else you don't like about public speaking?
Saying the wrong thing.
Yes, saying the wrong thing.
I was going to say the same, someone calling you out for saying something wrong.
Yeah, wrong thing. Anyone else?
Looking like an idiot. It's all the same, same idea. Isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Maybe like fear of failing on the stage and not something professional. And, you know, we all having the same fears. Yeah, when I started my journey with public speaking, English is my second language, so there was totally no confidence for me presenting to public. My face went red, basically, and I just could say few words and just disappear and have myself in the back of the room. Yeah, that's how it was. So those fears, we really having the same fears. So I outlined few which I could think of. So fear of not being trusted, fear of failing on the stage, or fear of forgetting your content, words online, fear of something stupid, or fear of not being professional. It's all the same for everyone. Even the best public speakers, they have the same fears. But how would you feel about public speaking if I could magically take away most of those fears? I think, would you like it? It's quite, you know, it's a communicating your thoughts to others, yeah? If I could take away, let's say, 80% of those fears, it could be actually quite maybe pleasant experience for some, I think. So if we go to the next slide, I would like to introduce you to my magic 7, 38, and 55 rule that will take away most of your fears. So based on the research of the psychologist called Albert Mervine, who was doing a research on importance of verbal and non-verbal communication, the content of your presentation really accounts only for 7%. So all these fears about sounding not professional, saying something stupid, forgetting the line, freezing, that's only 7%. Is that not that great news? The rest, there you go. I told you, I will take all of your fears away. You can forget about them. They're not existing. It's only 7%, not that important. The 38% account for your voice, so how you actually speak and project. And over a half actually account for your body language. And this is how your audience is perceiving you based on this rule, which I thought is a wonderful news. Yes, you've got a 50% of the chance to impress your audience before even opening your mouth. How great is that? Can we go to the next one? Well, but why body language is so important? Well, because the posture your face impression and your gesture, so how you use your hands, they're really important parts of the storytelling. And we like storytelling. Storytelling to keep your audience engaged. Yes. But there is a very important component of the body language that you shouldn't miss. Like everyone should really pay big attention to this one. And it is the first impression. Extremely important for two key reasons, because you can make first impression only once. Yeah. And it only takes a few seconds to make first impression. And the first impression is a really important aspect of your presentation. If we go to the next slide. There is a research done of importance of first impression. So those two researchers from the University of Harvard, they asked students to score their professors. They never met those professors before, based on the 10 seconds muted video. So there was no content there, just 10 seconds of the video. And they were scoring them on 50 different dimensions, like if they trust them, if they optimistic, if they professional, if they believe them, so different dimensions. After they collect scoring for 10-second video, they shorten this video to 5 seconds and then to 2 seconds. And what is really interesting part of this research, that the results for 10 seconds, they were pretty much the same as the results for 2 seconds, which indicates that we actually form an opinion about a person based on 2 seconds interaction, not even verbal interaction. Is that overwhelming? Well, don't be, because during this presentation, I'm going to give you a tips how to create, how to make a killer first impression. So bear with me, it's all coming. I will give you basically all advice how to do it. Two things for you to remember. So we decide if we like someone, if we believe or we trust someone before we even hear this person to speak, based on this first impression, which is called a power of snap judgment. And the second thing is that what you should remember, that your presentation doesn't start when you're on the stage. Your presentation starts when your name is called to the stage, because this is where you're making first impression. This is where all eyes are on you. So when you are going to the stage, make sure you stand up and you walk to the stage as you're already presenting, because this is important part. Okay, let's move on to this killer first impression. I've got for you some tips how to do it. So the power of snap judgment, so the mechanism that is responsible for the first impression, it's really a survival mechanism. It's a mechanism which our brain uses when we walk through the dark street and we see a group of people. So so we make very quickly a judgment, and our brain is rooted the way that it's answering certain questions, and we call them the level of trust. So the first level of trust question is this person a friend? Then the second level of trust is this person a winner or a follower or a loser? And then the third level of trust is, are we in the same team? Are we allied or are we actually enemies? If we go to the next slide, please. So there is a research done by an organization called Science of People, and they watch hundreds of TED Talks presentations, speakers, from the most popular to the least popular. And they comes out with few tricks how you can actually make good impression on people based on people who present it. So first tip that I have to you, it's use your hands. And I know that might be a surprise to some, because obviously we don't really speak with our hands, or sometimes we do, if we travel, probably. But hands are really important. And hence, using your hands are important during the presentation because remember that our brain uses the snap judgment. So so function which really provides you a very snap response and very snap, it's a very quick response of your brain. And to understand why hands are important during your presentation, while showing hands is important during your presentation, we need to get back to the caveman time. So our great-grandfathers, cavemen. For the caveman time, the easiest way to judge if the person is an enemy or wants to hurt us, so the first level of trust, is by observing the hands. If someone was holding a stone or a spear or acting funny with the hands, that probably was indication that they would like to harm us, they're not a friend, or they would like to steal something from us. Our brain is wired this way that when you actually use our hands during the presentation, that puts your audience a little bit on ease. And going back to this research done by the Science of People, when they examine TED Talk speakers, so the least popular TED Talk speakers use their hands approximately 270 times, so the gestures. But the most popular TED speakers, they actually use their hands almost double. So it was almost 500 times during the presentation. So this is why you should remember to at least keep your hands visible. Don't put them into the pockets. Just keep them visible. Use the hands during your presentation. What is also important is the handshake. As you know, in many cultures, the handshake is indication of that we are greeting someone. I know the pandemic maybe destroyed this custom to such an extent, but the handshake is actually a really important part as well. So when you come into the stage, normally the chair maybe like greet you with the handshake. At least that's how it was before pandemic times. Why this is important? Well, the handshake, first of all, you indicate you are the friend. So someone is straight away making this judgment about you. And secondly, when actually we touch someone else's skin, our bodies and the other person's body create something which is called oxytocin, which is a hormone really responsible to build trust. So the handshake is actually quite important part of the presentation or the greeting people during the meetings. Yeah. So 2 points to remember. Keep your hands visible and never skip the handshake. Trick number 2, second level of trust. Are you a winner or are you a loser? Why this is important? Because we like winners. We love winners. We like to follow winners. We like to be in the winning team. We like to know that you presenting a winning idea to us. Yeah, so this is important. And the winner also means a confidence. We like confidence people. We like when you are on the stage and being confident and you know that what you're presenting is, you stand behind this. You might ask how the winner look. Well, there was a research done by one of the American universities when they examine Olympic athletes. The one which they win and the one who they lose. They examine their body language. And you probably have seen that a million times in the TV, how winner act. So they put their hands up, they take the space, yeah? So that's the winning pose, the high power pose. Chin up, open chest, they want to be visible. They take in the stage. And that's the winning pose. Whereas the losers, well, the losers don't want to be seen. They really normally cramp their arms, they roll their shoulders, they probably face in the head. So that's the low power pose. What is interesting about this research is that the same research was done when they observed blind athletes, and those athletes, they were blind from birth, so they couldn't really see how other athletes celebrate the win or the lose. And the most interesting part was that they did the same way of celebrating the win. So their arms were up. So that kind of power posing is a very instinctive to us. So when we use snap judgment, when we judge a person or form an opinion about a person, this is what we're judging them on, that kind of instinctive pose. So of course, when you're presenting, don't bring her up, Sam, that's slightly too much, but when you're on the stage, when you walk to the stage, you have to bring this power pose with you. So put your shoulder down, open the chest, keep your hands a little bit in the distance to your body, just to take the space, because that's what is important, part of the first impression. That's how we're judging a person. Two things to remember. Well, some advice on here, we can share that with everyone. Stand like a winner, look like a winner, interact like a winner. Next point, eye contact. So eye contact, after we pass the first level of trust, are you your friends? After we pass second level of trust, are you winner or are you not a winner? We move to the third level of trust. Are we in the same team? And the eye contact is actually a really important part of this level, passing this level. Because eye contact brings your audience together. The eye contact means that by stopping even for a fraction of a second on a person, this person feel like you are presenting to them. This person feel important. This person feel a part of your presentation. So it can be 100 people there, but by really stopping and looking at your audience, you can create this feeling of together, being as a one. And there is a research about this. So the research says that to create a meaningful connection with a person, you have to keep an eye contact between 60 to 70% of the time. And that's also applied to dating, by the way. Yeah. So when you're presenting on the stage and you try to read from the screen or read from your notes, remember, you're taking away a very valuable time that you could use to create this connection with the audience. Yeah, they're part of your presentation. And also, during the eye contact, again, our brain releases the oxytocin, the hormone of trust. So this is why you have to remember about keeping eye contact. The eye contact make the good presentation, great presentation, because your audience, of course, they are interested about the content, but really at the end, they will remember how you make them feel during the presentation. If you notice them, if you care for them. So here, a point to remember is, well, keeps your hands visible, never skip the handshake, stand like a winner, look like a winner, interact like a winner, and the last one, use your eye contact to build the trust and glaze across your audience to build and produce this connection. So the first impression is an ultimate social weapon that I give to you today. Now you know the secrets, you know how to do it, you should use it. So make sure you use the first seconds of your presentation and show your audience that you are there to be trusted, you've got the winning idea, and you are there to help. And this is how we make the presentation memorable. That's how we become memorable. Okay, thank you. Shall I go? What is the time? Because I've got second part of this presentation.
35 minutes past 4.
35 minutes past 4. Okay, we can run through the other points which I was talking about the content. We will not go to the voice because voice is completely different workshop. We can do workshop on voice production. But there are a couple of points which I thought about the contents that I should tell you about. So first of all, very quickly, have access information. Doesn't matter if your presentation is 10 minutes on an hour. Do not put too much information on your slides. Create a story about your presentation and try to present that this way. Don't cram the information on the slides. Review your slides and just check if it's enough for your audience to understand, and keep it clear. Yeah, simplicity. Be in the moment. Be responsive to your audience. Sometimes you can see that maybe you're presenting something which is very data-driven. Maybe there is something complicated. Just use the eye contact. See where your audience is. Are they actually looking a little bit that they're not concentrating? Are they maybe taking a notes and you're going too fast? Slow down, let them to note something. If they feel like it's maybe they're losing the attention, maybe break the presentation with some joke. Maybe say something to actually wake them up. Yeah. So be in the moment. Be part of the presentation. Don't just say what you memorize. Plan your presentation in audience in mind. There will be different level of presentation if we're presenting to someone who is from our field, and there will be different level of information that you have to give to people when they are not in the same profession. So ask the questions: who is the audience, how they benefit from your presentation, and what is your call for action? Like, I ask you to use my tricks in my for you to succeed. So that was my call for action. Think about the call for action. What is your presentation actually? How they can benefit and what they can do about it. I like the top one. Don't be boring. Top tip. Don't be boring. Obviously, we got in our profession, there's lots of data-driven presentations. The subject, I'm sure my next speakers will prove to you that it can be super interesting and you don't need to be boring presenting air quality.
But the pressure on. Please stop.
Okay. But there are certain rules that you can use as well, certain tips you can use with your presentation. So you can add the contrast. So don't do only data slide after slide. You can do data and slide about something different, which break a little bit. So add the contrast. Yeah, alternate between story and data. Change your tone of voice. Sometimes actually, I know we're saying project your voice so you can be heard at the back of the room, but sometimes when you change the tone of voice, people actually start to pay more attention because something different happened. They would like to hear what you're saying. So alternate how you present. Highlight things which is very important by using different tone of voice, yeah? Hand gestures, again, if you've got something important, if you've got something to show, numbers, use your hands. You know why? It's a first level of trust. Rehearse. I rehearsed this presentation. I did not create this presentation and just arrive here and said to you everything what I wanted to say. I spent time rehearsing because I knew I've got some research to refer. I wanted to make sure I've got certain flow. It really paid off to spend some time rehearsing important presentation. I know sometimes it's a very tempting, especially when we've got project that we know well, that you will be like, yeah, we'll be fine, and we'll just put slides together. It really pays off to rehearse, I don't know, twice that evening, once in the morning, just to keep the flow, just to use the right words, just to use one, like a connectors between your slides, yeah, which you learn. So really rehearse. If it's really important presentation, ask people, friends to be part of this. Dress up even if you would like to put yourself in the moment. I sometimes, with really important presentation, actually record myself. I just put a Teams meeting for myself. I record myself just to see how do I sound. Is that a flow? Am I forgetting something? Use that. It really pays off. And be ready to improvise. It's a presentation, it's a live event. You never know what can happen. People might ask you questions. You might forget the lines. Remember, it doesn't really matter if you don't say everything what you plan to say, because your audience doesn't know that. So don't get stressed about it, but learn how to speak impromptu and practice. What would be the worst case scenario? At the second workshop, we will be actually talking a little bit more about the impromptu speaking, how to answer impromptu questions, just to give you a little bit of a flavor and help you with that kind of situation. Yeah. Is there one more slide? Yeah, I think it's the same one. I double it. Be ready to improvise. Any questions? No.
Can't think of any questions.
Just maybe say, Sean is obviously, so we both in the public speaking club, which is called Toastmasters. This is a great way of practicing public speaking. It's every bigger town probably has got a club. There is probably 90 clubs only in London. So if you go to your local town, you probably will find a club, and you can join the club. It's really affordable, but the most important, that's a place where you can practice in front of the people, if in front of the live audience. Okay, I will pass to Mark. Thank you.
Donna. Never skip the handshake.
Yeah.
Thank you. So next up we have Sean Will, who's had a 25-year career working in data, primarily in finance, working for some of the biggest names in financial organisations. On arrival, he confessed to me he knows nothing at all about air quality, so your job will be to educate Sean later on. In addition to that, he's been running Central London Toastmasters for 5 years, and it's now become one of the biggest public speaking clubs in London. While he's been running the club, he has watched hundreds of speeches and presentations, giving him valuable insight into what works and what doesn't work. So thank you for being with us, Sean.
Thank you. Don't forget the handshake. So if I stand here, there's no light or
No, you're fine.
perfect. I'm okay here. Right. Sorry. I've got this friend, John. I went to university with John. I've known him for years. He's a bit lazy. I don't know if he still is now, but at university he was very lazy. And he got a job after university, which he hated, and he quit after it. It wasn't even a year. And what he decided to do was he decided to set up his own business. He would spend a couple of days each week in his mum's kitchen making lemon curd, and then he'd sell that in a market stall for the rest of the week, and that's how he made his money. After a few years, he started selling that to local businesses, and that kind of business grew and grew and grew, and he sold to more businesses. After 12 years, he started exporting, and that's where his business exploded. So he now, that was 10 years ago, he exports all over the world. To mostly Asia. Apparently lemon curd is considered, I don't know if anyone likes lemon curd here. Lemon curd is considered exotic and quintessentially English, especially in Asia. So there's a I wouldn't say a big demand for it, but a reasonable demand for it. Right. So I think we've had the introduction. My name is Sean. What I want to do is describe to you the principles of data storytelling. I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm going to keep it really basic, but I want you guys to remember it. I don't know how much data storytelling you have to do, but hopefully in a few years' time, if this ever comes up, you'll remember these principles. They did a study. So a few years ago, they did a study, and they got an audience much like this, and they presented them with two presentations. One was an analytical presentation with facts and figures, and one was a presentation wrapped up in the story. And afterwards, they asked the audience, they quizzed the audience on how many key takeaways they could remember. And out of the story formats, only 63% could remember the key takeaways. 63% is a pretty bad statistic. That's just over half, meaning half the audience, just under half the audience, didn't take in the key takeaways. When they quizzed the audience about the analytical presentation, only 5% could remember the key takeaways. That's a terrible statistic. 5%. That's 1 in 20 were to absorb that information. 19 out of 20 didn't. So what that says is, if you wrap your presentation up in a story, it's a lot more effective. It's a lot more efficient. Why is that more efficient? Well, the story, because of the way the human brain is, the story works at the subconscious level. As you know, like we use our subconscious 95% of the time, and our cortex, our human brain, 5% of the time. So when you tell a story, that goes into the subconscious. If you have a really good storyteller, they tell a really good story. You have a psychological thing called narrative transformation, and that means that the audience start to buy into the story. They start to buy into the characters, the situation, and they want to find out more. They want to find out the next, what happens next. If you have a really good storyteller, you have a thing called neural coupling, which is where the audience is like brainwaves synchronized with the presenter's brainwaves. That's if it's a really good storyteller. But data storytelling, that's probably not going to happen because it's just too difficult. But we want to aim for narrative transformation. When that happens, people are more open-minded and they're more open to suggestion. They're more open to the message you're sending out. So that's why storytelling, data storytelling, is a much more effective and efficient way of presenting data. So I'm just going to cover like a basic. I just want to cover like a basic setup. So yes, so 3 bits: obviously the story, obviously the data, and the context. So let's cover story. Okay. So let's go with the basic one: the setup, transition, resolution. So the setup is when you introduce your characters and the situation. The resolution is where it all gets a bit crazy. There's a lot of emotion. You don't know what's going to happen at the end. And this is where you kind of buy into the story and you want to find out what's happening next. And the resolution is where, what happens at the end. The goodies win, the baddies go to prison, and all is right in the world. So that basic setup, that's used all over the place. That's used in films, it's used in books. It's a really simple but effective narrative. Quite often they have a plot twist at the end. So a lot of films have a plot twist. That's a great idea if it's a film, but for data storytelling, again, it's too much. So if you can skip any kind of twists and just keep it as simple as you can, that's the best way. So that's the story. So secondly, let's look at the data. Can we move on to the next slide? Okay, so this, I forgot to mention this bit. So the story at the beginning is my friend John, and he's got a company, chips and preservatives, and I'm using his data for some of the slides. That's why I introduced it. When you do his slide, keep it as clean as you can. So you don't need to put lots of writing on it. That can come verbally. Just keep it nice, clean, and simple. Each slide should say one thing. You've got 2 things to say. Use 2 slides. Just one thing. Yeah. And again, when you're presenting these slides, present to the audience. It's really easy, as I just did, to turn around, turn your back to the audience, and then start talking to the slide. So make a point of standing this way, standing forward. This is okay. It's average. It's a bar graph. It's, we've seen millions of these. People are going to judge you on the quality of your graphs. When we move to the next, yes. So we're at a time of data visualization. So those Excel graphs that we're all used to, we're moving on from that. So this is a box graph, I think it's called. It's much more exciting. It's much more colourful. It looks a bit more stylish. Could we do the next one as well? So this is a donut graph. It's effectively just an old-fashioned pie chart, and it's got the middle missing. But it just makes it look. It's more stylish. It's more modern. It's more up to date. So I would go with the more up-to-date graphs when you're presenting. It looks better. I'm going to come back to the graphs a bit later, towards the end of the presentation. Could we go back to yes, this one, that one, perfect. So the next is the context. So you've got to link the data to the story. So I rang over lockdown. I rang my friend John to see how he was doing, and he wasn't doing very well because his business has collapsed. Not collapsed. His sales had collapsed during lockdown. He couldn't export anything. He had a lot of costs. He had to pay for a warehouse. He had to pay for 10 members of staff, and he wasn't making any money. So he was in a lot of debt, and he was getting quite desperate. And what he decided to do was remortgage his house, which kind of made it even more risky, because if that didn't fix things, he would lose his business and he'd lose his house. And he was scared he was going to lose his family and his kids. He was scared he was going to lose everything. So you can see that in this graph. So 2019, really good year. You can see, you know, the numbers are coming up. 2019, he had turnover of 1 million, and then things absolutely slumped here. So that's where he lost a lot of money. What I'd like to do now is talk about how to create graphs. There's a number of ways. So I guess most of you will use Excel. That'd be a fair comment. And does anyone use like Tableau or Power BI or any visualization tool?
You can say no.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so sorry, I can't remember the exact order. So
We do have our own sort of one of our specialist air quality visualization tools.
Oh, you do?
There are some
okay,
like open air, is that right? People use that? Yeah.
yeah, I see. Here's this is effectively just a bar graph, but it's a lot more stylish than a bar graph. So if you use something like Tableau, it gives you more options. So this is a Tableau graph. This is the top 10 lakes by area and depth. Instead of having rectangles, they've just got circles. It's that simple. And then so the Caspian Sea is the biggest, and then I might pronounce this wrong, Baikal, the deepest and relatively smallest. So again, so these kind of graphs, the geographic graphs, they're very much in fashion at the moment. So this is population growing and declining. So you can see it's growing here and it's declining over there. These look a lot better than if you just had a bar graph or if you just had a line graph, a lot better. Some of the visualization tools, these kind of things are easy to generate. You can now do them in Excel. I find it a bit problematic to get the geographic graphs working. What I've seen when you create graphs in Excel, it takes about 20 minutes. When you do it in something like Tableau, Excel takes 10 minutes. When you use Tableau, it takes about 20 minutes. There's a bit more time there, but I think it's worth it. I want to show you a few more. So this is quite nice. Grey, stylish, grey sleek. Probably a bit too much text. Yes. So I like this. Again, this is just a bar graph. There you've got your 4 bars. problem with this looks amazing, but it's really hard to do, to generate. You basically need to do this manually. For me to do this would take a day. So although this looks amazing, it's probably out of reach for most professional, for most commercial presentations. So we're left with the graphs of just showing you. These are more realistic for workplace presentations. Right. So just to wrap it up, a couple of weeks ago I rang my friend John. That's how he was. I was expecting him to be all depressed and upset like last time. He was over the moon. It turns out since the lockdown, his business has absolutely grown massively. And you can see that in this graph here. So that was 1 million, 2019. That's 1.1 million turnover. He's had an explosion in exports in Asia. And that's driving his business. You can see India's his biggest exporter, but you've got like Japan, China, South Korea, Taiwan. So these Asian countries, that's where he's making a lot of money. When I spoke to him 2 years ago, he was really depressed, scared of losing everything. And now he's not going to lose everything. He's got a lot of debt, but he gets to keep his company, gets to keep his house, hopefully his family. So all is good with the world. Thank you.
Okay, so to hand over to our final speaker of the afternoon, this is Dr. Mark Broomfield from Puciato, Technical Director here, has over 30 years experience as an air quality assessment and management specialist. He leads strategic and complex air quality projects throughout the UK and Europe, and more recently he has been working to improve air quality in cities throughout Asia and worldwide. He has acted as expert witness on air quality related matters on over 40 occasions. Mark is an experienced speaker on air quality matters, presenting at conferences in Asia in 2018 and earlier this year as well, and at IAQM events in 2021. Mark is the author of the popular science book, Every Breath You Take, a User's Guide to Atmosphere, published in 2019. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. The first thing is I'm going to break all the rules that two speakers have just told us, so I'm very sorry about that. That's the last hand gesture you'll probably see today. But yeah, so I think what I want to talk about today is presenting air quality information, and I don't think that anyone can tell you how to do that. And one of the reasons, well, the main reason I think that is a point that Hannah made very clearly, which is to think about your audience. And I always bang about this whenever I'm reviewing a report that somebody's written or looking at presentation. I think very often people write a report and they don't think about where the audience is coming from. What do they need to know? What do they already know? What message am I trying to get across? Do they stand a chance of understanding it? So I think it's true for presentations. It's true for reports. It's true if you're writing a book, which I did a few years ago, as you've heard. I think you do have to think about your audience. So if I just pop onto the next one. So this is an audience like yourselves. As you can see, they're very engaged. So everyone's got their hands up. That's a bit cheating. That's at the Marlborough Literary Festival in 2019, where I got a gig to talk about books. So everyone there has paid £5 for the privilege of being there. So that's pressure, if you like. But they weren't asking me questions. Basically, I said, take a deep breath, put your hand up and put it down when you need to breathe in again. So it's not actually showing people who are engaged, they're all desperately trying not to breathe. But that's kind of one kind of forum where I was having to talk about air pollution, which is what the book was about, because that's the only thing I know anything about, to a group of people who basically, as far as I knew, didn't know anything about air pollution. Indeed, I don't know if you've ever tried explaining to someone what you do for your job. What do people say? I don't know what sort of response you get. Someone says, "What's your job?" "Oh, I'm an air quality specialist." What do
they
people
say? What you do? Do you smell air?
You smell the air? Yeah.
over surveys get the most.
Yeah, over surveys, yeah, because everyone, at least everyone knows what a smell is, don't they?
Yeah.
I always get people talk about climate,
Yeah,
like, yeah, oh, like, yeah, you know, about, yeah, aren't diesels supposed to be good or bad or something? So you get climate issues.
or they not asking any question, they change the topic.
They change the subject, yeah, let's talk about something safer, yeah, talk about rats or water pollution or something. So, yeah, a lot of people don't really know anything, the first thing about air quality. So that's kind of one type of audience. Different type of audience you might well be encountering is a more knowledgeable and informed audience. And that will obviously affect, I think, the way that you talk about the subject. But one of the things when I'm talking to non-specialists, I might kind of ask people, when was the first bit of UK climate legislation introduced? Any guesses?
Just after
First bit of climate legislation in the world. When did that?
after
the Great
London
Smoke, yeah.
Climate legislation.
climate.
92.
92, not a bad guess. 2008 I've got, which is the Climate Change Act. You might be right, but the figure I've got is Climate Change Act. And that was the first legally binding national commitment to cut greenhouse gas emissions. So that was 2008. And then air pollution legislation. Now, when was the first air pollution legislation?
Yeah, the smoke.
The Great Smog, so Clean Air Act 1956. Any advance on that? You think it's early, before then, after then? Well, it wasn't after then because there was a Clean Air Act. Well, the answer that I found is 1273. So 750 years ago, there was a law banning the use of sea coal in London. And it sanctioned the use of prison and torture for people who failed to comply. And that was to reduce air pollution in London because they're burning crappy, horrible coal from washed up on the beaches in the northeast of England. So yes, we've had 750 years to sort out air pollution. We still haven't really managed it, but you know, we're ahead of the game, at least in terms of our friends in the world of climate change. So that's sort of something to get people thinking about air pollution. And if you can just go on to the next slide. So this is an excerpt from my book. And so I've got some data here. This is talking about lead and blah, 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 1% this, 1984, 85 that, air quality guidelines. And then I kind of finished with this little thing here, just good news. So I think there is a place for, this is one of my points I want to come across, is using simple, short words to describe complicated issues. And I think to some extent you can only do that if you understand it really well. Then you can go, yeah, that was good news. You know, that's good news. We had a problem. We've sorted it out. Good news. So I quite often like to use simple language to talk about complicated things where possible, and even break rules of grammar like I've done there. Like all the way through my book, I was starting sentences with and all that sort of thing. And good news, that's not a sentence, but you can sort of get away with it. I think, and it does then have a little bit more of an effect. But you can't do that for every audience. So not every audience is appropriate for that kind of more informal approach. Sometimes it is, more often than perhaps you might think. But if you are presented to the public, I think you do have to take a lot of steps backwards. And of course, we're quite often presenting not just published, but certainly to non-specialists. So, as we said, nobody really understands what air quality is. Is it smell? Is it climate? Is it something else? Let's change the subject. Nobody really understands what it is. So there is a kind of you have to kind of get to ground zero sometimes with people. A lot of people are not number literate. So using even like a number like 1% wouldn't particularly mean anything to people. And that's not just the general public, also applies, for example, to decision makers. So one of my 40 plus expert witness appearances, I was at a public inquiry into a residential development in a Midlands town, which I was supporting the use of bus transport for, saying it's okay as long as you get these low emission buses. So I talked for quite a long time about what we've done, how we'd assess the air pollution, and how if you don't have these, if you just don't have the buses, then it's going to be 104% of the standard. And if you do have the buses, it's going to be 89% of the standard. And so that's fine. And then after a bit, the inspector said, yes, just remind me how percentages work again. And so like that whole thing was just complete waste of time, really. So I might have just, what I should have said is, no bus is bad, got bus is good. Something like that would have been more help for sure. So we can't assume, I think, that people or decision makers, people you might expect to be literate, are number literate or understand what air quality is all about. And if you're presenting to kind of experts like our peers here today or colleagues, I think you can make perhaps a few more assumptions about understanding of how percentages work or what air pollution is. But I think it's difficult to go wrong just by keeping things simple. So the challenge then is perhaps to make air quality interesting and engaging. And we've seen some good examples of how you can make data interesting. I really like that code, the disease one you put at the end. That is a very striking image, isn't it? And really tells the story. I did an event at the Environment Industries Commission, is that what they're called? British Expertise International, that was it, a few weeks ago. And the feedback I got at the end of that was, I thought it would be boring, and it wasn't, which I thought was quite I was happy with that. I took that away. And there's another public inquiry a few years ago. I was talking to one of the objectors, and we had quite a long discussion. This and that, and I was this, and I'm worried about this, and I don't believe that. And then at the end, she said, "Well, I still don't like it. I can't think of any more questions." And so I thought also that was kind of job done. I'm never, if you're going to come along and build a waste incinerator in someone's backyard, they're never going to like it. But we've reached the point where they couldn't think of any more reasons why they didn't like it, at least from the point of air pollution. Okay, could I have the next slide, please? So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can make this data understandable to a non-specialist audience. So this is a fairly standard sort of table that you might get in an environmental statement. You've probably all prepared tables like that, yeah? Lots of percentages. So basically I don't need to explain to you, obviously. This is PCs and PECs, process contributions and predicted environmental concentrations. And what this report is saying is one that I had to review for a public inquiry, give evidence on. So it's saying, if we go down to the bottom, you probably can't read that. There are no receptors where the impact of annual NO2 is modeled to be substantial under the IAQM ECN criteria, or where the annual wind concentration is predicted to exceed the limit value. And then we've got various slights, moderates there, and I think everything else is negligible. And then there's figures for 139, I think, receptors are in Appendix 80. So that's the information that's presented. So I don't know, how can you give me a sentence to start talking about that, either to sort of describe what we've got, or even to summarise what the conclusions are without mentioning the word percent? Any suggestions? You're excluded. Yeah.
Start by introducing what the PEC is that stands for.
What the PEC? Yeah, sure. You often see saying what's just like plunked in there PEC. What's that? How's the predicted environmental concentration? Well, what does that mean? So that's. I think it's probably the what's in the atmosphere already added to what the extra bit we're going to put on top. So yeah, that's a good start.
Describe the receptors or explain what receptor means.
Receptors.
Everyone knows what receptor is.
Yeah, knows, right. I have a bit of a thing about the word receptor. Have you ever typed the word receptor in a report? Yes, guilty. Yeah. So receptor, and that gives the impression that your job as a local resident is to receive the pollution that I'm going to dole out to you, and that is your mission in life. So I don't like the word receptors. I like, I don't know, sensitive location or something like that. But anyway, we use the word receptors. So yeah, what is it? So sorry, what was your point on that?
Just not everyone might understand what is receptor.
What is receptor? Yeah. So it's a set. Yeah, that's right. So good. So we should explain that. It's a sensitive location.
If I was describing that table, we had two sentences. probably assume that the person reading it would be someone making a decision.
Yeah.
So the most important conclusion is what does a moderate or slight impact mean
Right.
in real terms? To get the numbers, what does moderate impact actually mean? Talk around that.
I'll explain what that means. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Anything more about those like impacts that we want to communicate? Slight and moderates.
Doesn't specify whether it's a slight adverse or a slight beneficial impact.
That's a good point as well. It's an expanded airport, it's all bad. Yeah, that point as well. Yeah, it's just going slight moderate. Yeah. Okay, so do you want to?
I think that it's also important to understand that the impact is based at the difference between if it's expanded the airport or any development.
Yeah.
It's obviously based on the difference between you will have what your baseline and what you're actually producing.
So without this thing or with this thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, that's important too. Otherwise, yeah, what people make of that. So can you just go down one? So this is a first stab. So I've still got percents in it. So I kind of went for the highest model concentration is less than 90%. The highest contribution from development 17%. It would be moderate at 7, slight at 5, and negative at the remaining 126 receptors. I mean, that's the sort of thing you might write in a report. I mean, that would be quite boring just for me to stand up and read that out as I just did. Was it boring? Yeah. It was, yes. So do you want to try the next one? So then I tried, we can describe effects on air quality as high, moderate, slight or negligible. The effects of development will be slight or even negligible almost everywhere, with moderate effects at just a few locations. So that was my sort of best stab. So I mean, it's picking up some of the points that we made, but not all of them. I don't know how about my public speaking expert. Have you got? Does that make sense to you? Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. There's still quite a lot built into that in terms of knowing what's going on. Yeah, all that stuff that we're talking about. The effect without compared to with the airport expansion. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on that one? So I would think that's a reasonable assumption that I might write in something I'm going to read out. Whereas the one before, I think, would be something you might write in an executive summary. But yeah, that might be harder to do or to digest. Okay. I think we had some funky, exciting data visualization tools, and here they are. Do people know what polar plots are? Have you produced those? A few nods around the place. Okay, so the first question is, what's a polar plot? Can you describe
The amount of concentrations by a second variable, like wind speed, wind directions.
Yeah,
That good looks to me.
it is. It's sort of both. It's wind speed and wind direction. Yeah. Okay, so this is showing how the pollution level depends on where the wind's coming from, and also how fast the wind is blowing. So here we've got a high pollution level when the wind's from the northwest, and the wind's not blowing very fast, for example. Okay, and then just to let you know, this is in Mongolia. So we have 2 air quality monitors. One here in the downtown district, sort of the city centre, and one here which is in the Gur area where the tented accommodation is. It's kind of gathered around the city. So I don't know if anybody's worked with these before, would like to give us an idea of how you would describe what they say. Let's do the easy one first, so the easier one. What could you summarise that plot there in that sentence or two? What's it saying?
The highest concentrations occur at relatively low wind speeds when winds go to the northwest.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I agree. That's I certainly agree with that. I mean, I don't know if you're experienced in understand what that means about where the source is, presuming a source of, in this case, PM10, particulate matter for non-specialists. dust, for one non-specialist. There's a source of airborne dust somewhere in that direction. Because it's low wind speed, source, maybe it's relatively close, I think.
It's interesting. It sort of implies that the road isn't the main source of PM10. So that's why it's there.
Like
So there might be another source.
Yes, we've got two roads going on here, 1, 2, and there's actually no signal at all from the road there, so which is interesting, as you say. This is Mongolia's second city, Erdenet, which has a population of about 100,000, so it's quite a small place. There are not many cars going up and down that road, so although it looks like the main road, that does actually make sense with the intensity of the traffic that's there, but that's a good observation. Okay, how about this one over here? What's this showing us? Anything we can believe it?
Potential more road station because kind of follows the road a bit more.
Yeah, so maybe it's pointed to the road, and that could be explained by the fact that these are all kind of quite rough roads around here, so there'd be more dust on the road, more mud and dust on the road being kicked up by the cars, so maybe there's a contribution there. Any other thoughts? I think, well, the other thing that goes on there is a lot of coal burning in the tents. So I think if you can just go on to the next slide. So this is again a first step, I think, at what this says. So the first thing we definitely need to explain what's going on with these plots because no one's going to have the faintest idea what it means. So I've just put quite a high level statement. These plots help to show us where measured levels of air pollution come from. It looks like there's a source of particulate matter to the east of our, I should have put west, shouldn't I? Of our two monitoring stations. People always get east and west modelled up, and there's me doing it as well. This could be coal burning in the GER area. So over here, and heat-only boilers, which you don't know about, but I do, in the downtown flats. So again, what I'm trying to do is not put any numbers in there, trying to use simple language where I can. I don't know if particulate matter counts as simple language or airborne particulate matter. But yeah, I do sometimes use dust rather than particulate matter, even though that's not strictly technically accurate, but it's something that people would understand. Just to try and explain what's going on there. So if you could just go on to there's a slightly simpler one version. So that's the same first sentence. It looks like coal burning in the GER area. We think it's heat-only boilers in the downtown area. So that's a 2-sentence summary, but maybe I didn't pick up about the dust off the road in the second one, so maybe I should add that in as well. But then if you just quickly go through to the next one. So this is what this area looks like. So you can see basically things like this going on, quite low level plumes of coal smoke, which you can definitely smell in the morning. Smelled like Derbyshire in the 1970s where I grew up, so that's how I recognised it. And then the next one, and that's so this is the centre. So you see there are some cars going up and down there, but not a whole lot. And this is the flats, I think, on one of these roads here, possibly this road here. So you can see the flats there, and they all have heat-only boilers, but also coal-fired plant. They run all winter. Okay, so that's a sort of a short intro to, I suppose, about maybe some ideas about how to present simple data just using, complex data using hopefully simpler language. So if you want to go on to the next one, please. Yeah, I was just going to sort of talk through a couple of slides from a presentation that I was part of giving in Glasgow in 2016. So this was for a waste to energy plant, and this is taken straight from the PowerPoint presentation that the developer put together for the planning committee meeting at Glasgow City Council. And I had 2 slides to talk about in detail about air quality. So I haven't made any edits to this for today's talk, so there are possibly some things that I might do different. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means. But I just wanted to kind of, I guess this is a situation where I had to talk about a waste incinerator, very complex. So is there something that comes to mind if you think of waste incineration and air pollution? What sort of pollutants would you be concerned about? Anyone? PM, particulate matter?
Energy.
Yeah. And dioxins, yes. Yeah, I think those are all three good answers because particulate matter and NO2 are really the important ones. Dioxins are the ones that many people worry about, and they're important too. But obviously, there's no mention here of dioxins, so we've kind of finessed that just to talk about the health impacts. But obviously, that was number one on everyone's list of reasons why they didn't want a waste incinerator in Glasgow. So I started off by saying we understood that achieving a high standard of control of air quality is critical. I talked about the consultation we carried out and with officers and with local people. We did carry out a detailed air quality and health risk assessment to make sure that we achieved that level of control. So the work was carried out in accordance with guidance from the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, by the esteemed Institute of Air Quality Management and others. And we looked at both the process itself and the traffic that was going to be travelling to and from the facility. And we also were very careful to identify all the nearby sensitive locations, which include schools, hospitals, high-rise, habitat sites and allotments. We designed the process to go beyond the normal emissions controls in order to make sure that the impacts are at a minimal level. And as a result, the South Street Energy Recovery Facility complies with all the guidelines, so there's an insignificant impact on air quality and no discernible risk to health. So that was how I described it. If you just hop onto the next one. So I just wanted to highlight a few points on why I'd mentioned, why I put them in. So I started off with we understood. So I did that sort of to make it personal. So it's like we're not, we're people too. We're not just robots. We're not some corporate giant just wants to come and plot this thing here. We are people, and we understand. We think like people as well. So it's to kind of get a little bit of rapport. I mentioned CEPA and the Institute of Air Quality Management to say it's not just me saying this is okay. We've used their methods as well to kind of get a bit of external validation of what we were saying. We mentioned receptors before, and I said sensitive locations. I didn't use the term receptors. Maybe that's just me, but and we also I think so you should describe what receptors are. So I have kind of gone through what they are. At another site, somebody, local community, actually dug a new allotment next to the site to make it harder for us to get the development through. But luckily, it was still okay, even in terms of the impact on the allotment. And I use the term here, complies with the guidelines. I think often we tend to say pollution levels are below the standards, and that is true. But below is quite a negative word. To us, it's fine. It's good because standard there, we're below it. That's good, and that kind of process is built into your mindset, I think. But I think I prefer complies with because it's a more positive thing, or achieves or something like that. I'll come back to insignificant in a minute, but I ended up with no discernible risk to health. That was the kind of the final thing that I wanted to be ringing in people's ears, was no discernible risk to health, because it was the health impacts that people realised. People don't care about air quality, generally speaking, within that time. What they really care about was their property values and having a big incinerator next door to them. But the thing that they were justifiably concerned about from where I was coming from was the risk to health. So I thought, no discernible risk to health, I felt was a good phrase. I don't know if you agree with me, but it's not zero, but it's not discernible. Insignificant is a difficult word. And if I had my time again, maybe I wouldn't write insignificant. We have kind of guidelines. We know what we mean by insignificant. It means, less than 1% contribution or something like that. But I think people don't respond well to the word insignificant. It might be insignificant to you, but it's significant to me. Anything is bad for my family. So I do try and avoid insignificant when I'm sort of communicating to non-specialists. But and if you could just go on to the last one. So then we had my second slide was this, which was backing up the contribution. So it's kind of basically saying all these different sources of contribution, and then here's the contribution from our facility. So look how small it is. So, I mean, that doesn't look like a great policy picture, but I hope it's reasonably clear that we're saying there the ERF is actually extremely small contribution. If you're worried about particulate matter, then there's all these other sources to worry about there. So, any comments or feedback on my attempt to present complex information? Do you want to just go back to the previous? Any thoughts on that, or?
What do you use instead of insignificant?
Yeah, good question. What I was thinking was I would probably do something like no discernible impact on air quality or risk to health, something like that. But you know, because I mean, you can argue. You also sometimes use the impact was so low it couldn't be measured, but that's not saying very much because you'd have to have a really big impact before you could measure it. But it does at least sound good.
You could say like it meets the guidelines which are in place to protect air quality and health. So just more
yeah,
positive.
sort of, pushing it sort of to the guidelines, and then somebody else is saying this is safe.
Yeah.
That's good answer as well. Yeah.
To get back to the last slide, I like when we put things into the context. Yes, because sometimes we talk about 1% or 40 micrograms or all the different measures. People don't maybe understand if you have to give them context. Like if you produce something like that, which is obviously 100%, but you've got the bars, they can clearly see color coding is a very winning as well method. People like colors, matching colors, very simple.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you show, okay, this is our contribution. Yeah, there's the 37 micrograms on paper. I don't know if that's big, small.
Yeah.
But when you put that in the context of something else, they will. That's a little bit of a storytelling, I suppose, because you tell the story that that is something which you compare that to the I don't know, daily traffic would pass your house.
Yeah.
This
and
is
it's all of us who are driving the cars.
Exactly.
Just other people.
So it's opening a little bit different areas for people to build the story in their minds. Yes.
Yeah. I think if I had my time again, I might sort of just lump all some of these categories together. Like, who cares whether it's brakes and tires, road abrasion, minor roads, or just whether it's traffic.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe for our audience, which is not as experienced, that's maybe too many categories.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe simple categorization would be just easier to comprehend and read. Yeah. One comment as well on that kind of graphs. Some people are colorblind. Remember about that. So you might maybe not for this one because if they blind, they still can match the colors. But if you describe that all results presented in red are above, well, not red. Red, not red.
Color. Yes, that's true. Okay, please go on to the final one. So, so I don't know on the bot, but not that yet. I'm coming on to that. So things often go wrong. When do things go wrong in reports and presentations? So first, we've talked about this before, when text and information is too complicated, or the writer/speaker doesn't understand it, or the writer or speaker is trying to bend the data to make it say something that it doesn't say, and that can happen. So if you just show us that text there, which is hideous, awful text, which was an air quality assessment for a store power plant, short-term operating reserve, diesel-fired generators, and don't read it all, but basically they were kind of tying themselves in knots to go, we've got a problem, but it's not a problem. And so I think there's something somewhere there of the number of hours per year, 3,067 operating hours could operate, which 91%, 91 hours, 2.5%. But they've got an impact here of 50% of the air quality projected, which is quite high. and they're going to present all this stuff, and then therefore it's negligible. So that to me, I mean, I read that dozens of times trying to understand what they're saying. I couldn't understand it. I don't think they understood it, and I think that is often a problem. So I think if you're struggling to communicate something, probably you just need to kind of get back a step and go, okay, what does this data say? Or why don't I maybe ask somebody else or something like that? But you know, I think if it's what you're doing every day, then often you should be able to understand it, and you can understand it. Because if you get stuck, then it's worth just taking a step back, trying to go, okay, look, what am I trying to get across here? Does it back it up? Okay, let's get rid of that, please. Thank you. What was I going to say? Yes, there's also just come to the next one, please. So this is another example. This is from that conference that I showed in Mongolia. This was at the Asia Pacific Regional Action Programme for Air Pollution High Level Forum. So this is to government officials, and this is taken from professor's presentation from South Korea. And he kind of put this up, and it was on the screen for about 24 seconds, and then it went off again. And I don't know if you've got any faintest idea what he's saying, but I have not got a clue. It's probably just saying we know a lot about air pollution in Korea, which they do. Simple message is don't put too much information on at once. Could you go down? Thank you. And then I think I've got some more kind of universal generic things which I think we've probably covered already. So don't forget your message, I guess your story, or your one key point, your action point, which is what Connor was saying, which I've definitely forgotten because I haven't got one key action point. Don't use images that send the wrong message. Can you just go again? Yeah, so something like this, delivering clean air with a picture of huge amounts of pollution, which even Ricardo has been known to do with our latest logo for air quality team with a big chimney on it. Thank you, guys. So anyway, let's get rid of that. Thank you. So yeah, images and sending a message. Reading out a script, we've already said that doesn't help. And as Hannah said, practice helps. So she said do 2 or 3. I mean, I think it's sort of, you get the most benefit from the first run through, and that's always worth doing. And more run throughs, particularly, the more important it gets, the more run throughs you might want to do. It just means you're more fluent, and you understand about timing, and you go through and you go, oh, actually, that's a bit of a clunky link there, all that sort of thing. So yes, one run through always worthwhile. And then just a few points. This is my opportunity to put my pet peeves up here. My peeves. So use, not utilise. Anyone who writes it is important to note that, gets that taken out of my reports. Nobody talks like that. I tend to use air pollution rather than always air quality. People understand what air pollution is. Generally, what's air quality? I don't know. How good it is. It's a more vague sort of concept of air pollution, bad stuff in the air. We refer to EALs quite often, the Environment Agency terms for an air quality standard. I would use air quality standard. I know sometimes it's an air quality objective, target. I don't get too hung up about those terms, but when you're presenting numbers, people often have the old Excel 2.5e minus 03 kicking around in their reports. Get rid of that. It's got to have actual numbers, not Excel speak. Chemical formulae, I would always put the chemical name rather than the formula in the text. So NH3, I've got a chemistry degree. I know what NH3 is. Most poor, unfortunate people don't have chemistry degrees, and something like that just looks like Greek in text or on a presentation. So I think it's better to have chemicals as actual words. And sometimes I use fine particulate matter, not always PM 2.5 again. PM 2.5, it's our common currency, but it's not on everybody's lips all the time. And then my final point, my final take-home message is respect your audience and give them what they understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the picture with the?
Oh, there. Yeah, that's also in Mongolia. That's a little day out where I had a little bit of fun with a steppe eagle. So I think she just had the popcorn that little girl's eating. But yeah,
good picture to finish with.
So
Good picture to finish with.
yeah, I thought so. Yes, let's take wing and air quality management.
So Just a few final bits. That was the three main presentations. Hopefully that's equipped everybody with some good tools to go away and think about. Today from IS, now I'm going to talk about an exciting opportunity for early career members of the IAQM that routes to clean air. I encourage everyone just keep in the back of their mind that if Joe's talking, they think, oh, maybe that's a bit of me, but I'm not quite ready. Remember, there's a second part to this workshop.
Great, thank you, Mark.
Yes, no, you never forget it, so.
Yes, okay, so perfect. I've got a really short, quick slot to talk to you today. So yeah, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I know you're probably ready to wrap things up and head for some networking after. So yeah, as Mark said, I just wanted to tell you about an opportunity that we've got for members of the IAQM's Early Career Network. So some of you might have already heard of or even been to the Routes to Clean Air conference. So this is the IAQM's annual conference that takes place. Yeah, you can see up here, it's happening this year in October. So it's actually the first time we've reverted to a two-day conference after COVID. So yeah, really excited to be kind of back to the full length of the event. And yeah, it's taking place in Manchester this year. So yeah, essentially they're still working out the full agenda for the conference at the moment, but it's going to be focused on lots of topics that are relevant for air quality professionals. So if you're interested in finding out more about the conference, then definitely keep an eye on the IAQM's website. But so if you go to the next slide. So I just wanted to mention an opportunity, as we've said, that you are able to take part in the conference. So being part of the Early Careers Network, I guess there's a space where we're really keen to help support and develop people's skills within a kind of welcoming environment. And as part of that, at the IAQM, we're keen that for our conferences going forward, that we kind of give you that opportunity to be able to present in these professional forums. So we have a slot for Early Career Network members. It's a half an hour slot in the two-day conference. So we're really just looking for not many people to speak. I've got up on the slide, it can be one person that wants to give a half an hour presentation, or we're open to kind of different varieties of people speaking. A few people doing 10-minute slots, or if people wanted to do 15-minute slots. And the topic that we're looking for people to present on as part of this is indoor air quality. So if you happen to be interested, but that's not necessarily a topic that you would want to present on, then I've got contact details on the next slide. So I'd still encourage people to get in touch, because we might be able to sort of fit you into other parts of the timetabling for that conference. But yeah, that's the kind of main topic that we're looking for speakers on. And yeah, just to really kind of hammer home the point that if you've been inspired by some of the sessions today and are keen to kind of put some of those skills into practice, I know we've mentioned we've got the second workshop coming up, so that will kind of give you that chance to practice in a small session before then going on and really having that opportunity in a professional environment. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to do that. And also, in case anyone is slightly daunted by the prospect of getting up there on their own, we are open to people if they'd like to present in with colleagues or others. So it's not something you would have to do on your own if you would rather do it with others. So yeah, if you can just go to the next slide. This is just the information about how to kind of express your interest. So if anybody was interested, that's actually my email address. So yeah, drop me over an email. let me know you're interested. Just yeah, a little bit of information about the kind of topic that you might be thinking of presenting about. If it's on indoor air quality or otherwise, as I say, we're open to yeah, hearing what you'd like to present on. And yeah, that's that really. If you could just go to the next slide. So this is about today's event. So if people have got their phones on them and wouldn't mind just taking a couple of minutes to fill out a very short feedback survey, would really appreciate that, just to yeah, get some thoughts on how the session today has gone. And yeah, that's everything from me. So I will give everyone some time just to fill that out, and then I think we'll probably hand back over to Mark to wrap up. So yeah. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jane.
So
Thank you.
I should do that.
How long to say it?
It should just take like a couple of minutes max. Yeah.
I just crack on with some interesting time just for us to finish that off. So hopefully that gave some interesting tools that people can take home with them. But the second part of this, by show of hands, has anyone actually signed up to the second workshop at the same time as the first one? It's not compulsory, but it's strongly encouraged. That people that attend the second one and consider signing up for a speaker slot. It doesn't have to necessarily be on a topic that's assigned. And I don't know if Bonnie, you wanted to elaborate a little bit more on
Yeah, it's any of you planning to attend? Yes. Well, I think the second workshop will be more practical. So it will be for you to present on something. So the idea was that we would ask you to prepare maybe 5 to 10 minutes presentation, and then you will get a certain level of feedback, how that it goes. Obviously, this is not compulsory. I think the idea is that we will teach you how to give good feedback to the audience, because giving feedback is also important. Like we often hear the presentation, giving feedback is almost about listening to content, asking the right questions, providing the important information to the speaker. And then we will have like a fun session, which will be more about answering maybe more impromptu topics, that just something random, which basically gives you opportunity to and time in front of the people where you can have this safe environment of practicing. So obviously, if you can attend both of them, that would be amazing, because you have heard quite a lot of good tips today. So and like I said, public speaking is all about practicing. We, like me and Sean, we're part of this club. We've got so many people signing in to give the best men's speech a week before the wedding, and you almost think like, now you're coming. So yeah, so I think it's important to practice.
Cool. So that's on the 5th of July in this room again.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. And if you want to sign up, you just email Jo.
Yeah.
On that email address. Or...
It's all online. So
It's all online, but let us know if you'd like to have the 5-10 minutes speaker slot and prepare something. Any takers?
On the spot.
On the spot.
Give people a chance to think about it and process what we've learned today. So that's it. Thanks for attending. Some of us are going to go for a drink if we go afterwards, if anyone would like to join. Otherwise, that concludes the afternoon. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who helped organize this workshop, Mark and Jason and Hilary and Joe. And thank you for our speakers. And thank you for coming. Thank you. Let's go for